It's my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker. Peter Harrigan has created college theater productions for 38 years, with 33 at St. Mike's College in Colchester. A lifelong pop culture fan, he has a very healthy inner child. That I realized personally already. Peter began gathering fashion dolls in 1993, discovered other collectors online in 1996, and first attended the National Barbie conventions in 2005. He releases his dolls from their packaging, which this young lady said she really wants to do, and especially enjoys finding, adapting, and making props, furniture, clothing, and backdrops for them. It's a miniature version of his theater work. He looks forward to sharing his adventures as a male doll collector and showing examples of his collection.
Thank you so much, Renee. Thank you, Chu Sand, and our other friends from Vermont Humanities. I'm delighted to be here, and thank you to everyone who's here in person. Thank you to the live stream folks, and thank you to anyone who will watch this in the future once it's posted on YouTube. And hello to you all. So my topic today is Barbie's reflection on our world. We'll see in some cases maybe Barbie is right there with the times or even sort of leading the charge forward, and other times maybe dropping behind a little bit and doing some things regrettable. So we'll call it Life in Plastic. It's often fantastic, but not always necessarily. As a child, I was always interested in dolls. You could see me by the Christmas tree. My mother and my sister are here. That little white circle is this flamenco doll that my uncle, who was in the Navy, bought, I guess, in Spain and gave to Peggy as a Christmas present. And you can see me sort of near it, but not near it, since that wasn't necessarily what boys were playing with in 1967 or 68. When I was more established as an adult, happened to meet someone pretty wonderful who's here with us now, Stan Baker, my husband. And he knew that as a child I'd been interested in Barbies, cousins' Barbies, neighbors' Barbies, anybody's Barbies. And so he got me a Barbie for my birthday in 1993, not knowing that it might sort of snowball after that.
It was a therapeutic gesture.
So I've been having a really good time for a little over 30 years with my little vinyl brood down in, well, we call it the lower level because the Barbies would not live in a basement. So in terms of Barbie's history, Barbie, of course, is produced by the company Mattel, which was founded in 1945 as a very sort of, well, literally mom and pop kind of startup, if you will. Ruth Handler and her husband Elliot had a friend named Harold Matson. So we had the L from Elliot and the Matt from Matson, and they were put together for the word Mattel. And they started out back out in the garage doing woodworking and making frames. And the leftovers from the frames were used eventually to make some doll furniture. And they thought, well, maybe there's a place for us in the toy industry. Certainly post-World War II, all kinds of folks are starting businesses and sort of finding their way in the world in what was a very prosperous time. Barbie, luckily, had a Jewish mother, and like so many other successful people. And Ruth was really the chutzpah, the force, the marketing genius, the life force, I would say, in Mattel, and certainly one of the reasons why Barbie came to exist at all. It's a little quote from her, very inspirational person. We didn't know how to run a business, but we had dreams and talent. Ruth, of course, has been sort of lifted out of the footnotes by the Barbie movie and the lovely portrayal by Rhea Perlman, and it's nice that the light is shown on her sort of in all this attention that Barbie's getting at the time. A lot of their toys were sort of boy toys, initially things that boys would typically play with their first big hit, I think, was in 1949, something called a Yuka-Doodle, which was a ukulele, and things kind of built from there. The company became somewhat successful, and the family somewhat prosperous. Here they are, Ruth and Elliot, with their 2 children, who are named, anybody guess? Yes.
Barbara?
Yes, and Ken. Barbie and Ken, yep. So she didn't look too far from home for names for her vinyl creations. Ruth, smart as she was, would notice her daughter playing and would notice that she really didn't have much interest in baby dolls or sort of, toddler dolls, which were really the only dolls that were available at the time. But she would have a blast playing with paper dolls, she and her friends. This is Doris Day here. And they would sort of project themselves into future situations, social, professional. They would have all kinds of adventures through these dolls. And Ruth thought, isn't that interesting? Maybe we could think about creating a doll that has more of an adult or at least teenage aspect, that kind of thing. They happened to go on vacation in Switzerland, and she walked by a store and she saw an adult doll who was named Lily. Lily was associated with a newspaper in Germany called the Bild newspaper, and Lily was sort of I don't know, Jessica Rabbit meets Betty Page or something. Lily wasn't necessarily a role model you would want to aspire to. She was sort of like a gag gift for bachelor parties, very sort of Spencer gifts with her built-in shoes and this sort of, come hither look to her. But Ruth, sort of saw the thing that she'd been hoping for, which was a doll that had adult features, including breasts. So Ruth was inspired to try to create sort of a tamer American version of a doll that she could market. And it took her a while to convince people within the company and then outside of the company that this would be a good idea, particularly the men. Because they really couldn't picture a doll that had breasts, and they just didn't think that that was something that would sell. But Ruth did win out, and Barbie was introduced on March 9th, 1959 at the New York International Toy Fair. If anybody does the math there, you'll know that Barbie's recent birthday made her 65 years old. Mattel, why don't you come in and have a seat? Okay, yeah, absolutely. Happy to have you here. Mattel, up through 1975, I think, talked about Barbie's birthday. There's Sweet 16 Barbie that was released in 1975. But then later, Barbie started having anniversaries, not birthdays. So this is Barbie's 65th anniversary year. So we've got our little bit of history there. Barbie wasn't necessarily selling all that well at first because I think parents had that same hesitation about this adult-looking doll, and would it be okay for the kids to play with it? So Ruth Handler was one of the early proponents of, probably not a good thing now, advertising directly to the children on the Mickey Mouse show, Mickey Mouse Club. And of course, the kids saw these things and thought, I just need to have this. So Barbie was off and running. Mattel, of course, they're making toys. They're not anticipating, some guy in Middlebury, Vermont, 65 years later, talking about this legacy. They're just making toys, and they're trying to sort of serve a market. One thing that was very different about Barbie culture then was most girls had one Barbie doll, and then they bought a lot of outfits. Now it seems like Barbies are a little bit more, landfill fodder, if you will, or sort of, they'll buy the doll with the outfit, and outfits really are kind of hard to find. But initially, Barbie came in this swimsuit, sort of similar to this version, which they did later. Barbie, of course, was not produced as African American in the 1950s. That would come much later. But she was wearing her zebra swimsuit. She had sunglasses. She had hoop earrings and little sort of mules, and then you would buy the outfits separately. And the outfits were really spectacular. Mattel hired a woman named Charlotte Johnson from the fashion industry who cribbed from Dior and Balenciaga and other real designers to find quite lovely things and to make them up in this little tiny scale to fit that little body, complete with earrings and hats and other accessories. So you bought your doll and then you would buy the outfits over time when you got your allowance or for Christmas or whenever in order to build Barbie's wardrobe. Most of the early outfits were available for 4 or 5 years, so you might be able to sort of get them all and dress your doll. This is one of the most iconic ones called Solo in the Spotlight, with Barbie sort of playing the sultry nightclub singer with her scarf and her microphone. Few others here. This is called Open Road. You can see that it comes with a map. Lots of times the props are a really fun aspect because they're so detailed and so to scale, and they really give you a nice sense of what Barbie might be up to in her adventures. They also started to think of Barbie in the career world. And there are a lot of, there's an outfit called Career Gal, there's another one called Busy Gal, and then this one, of course, is Registered Nurse. Barbie, in her earliest outfits and in her earliest jobs, is taking, what's the word? Secondary roles in society. It would be a while before Barbie could be the doctor, but she did get there. But this whole sort of professional orientation has always been part of her world, and now Barbie has had hundreds of careers. 1961, Mattel tweaked Barbie a little bit, changed her hairstyle because they wanted her to look like someone else who was in the spotlight at that time. Jackie Kennedy, who of course was a huge fashion icon, so Barbie wanted a little bit of that. Mattel is always sort of adding things that they think will get people to buy more. Basically, that's their mission, really, to sell stuff. It's secondarily to promote dreams and thoughts of adulthood, but mostly it's about buying stuff. So they decided, well, Barbie's done well. Maybe Barbie needs a companion doll in order to sort of boost the sales and add play value. So in 1961, Ken got added. Got a couple of different incarnations of Ken there through the years. Initially, when he was released, he had flocked hair, and the flocking would sometimes kind of wear off. So eventually, he had molded plastic hair in order to be more durable. Later editions of Ken had rooted hair. You can see this guy whose hair looks more realistic. And he sort of changed with the times as the years went by. Ken was definitely not Barbie's arm candy. I don't want any of that talk in here. Ken was definitely not an accessory. And Ken is not a purse with legs. Ken definitely is, though. Can you say it with me? Ken up! As we've all discovered, Stan brought his I Am Knuff sweatshirt today, so it's here. Yeah, just like Ryan Gosling's in the movie. So Ken was established. A couple years pass. We want to sort of add to the family, and so Barbie gets a best friend. Anybody know her name? Yes, Midge. Midge came along. Yeah, 1963. Midge sort of fades in and out of the Barbie line over the years, but tends to make some appearances. She never quite disappears completely. And at one point in 2002, Midge came back with a baby, which ended up being the inspiration for the Midge that you see in the Barbie movie, who is just kind of perpetually pregnant and ostracized. It's interesting because in the movie they don't quite say if there's a Midge man in the mix, if marriage is involved. Midge's boyfriend in the Barbie lore, of course, was Alan, Ken's buddy. And when Midge got married in 2002, she got married to somebody named Alan. So I don't know if Alan is really Midge's MIA baby daddy. It's sort of questionable right there. So we've got the family established. Barbie gets a little sister. Anybody know her name? Skipper. Yep, Skipper gets friends. Tootie and Todd come along, who are even smaller. So we just keep adding figures, cars, houses, fashion shop, a college campus. Pretty much any place in the world, we can bring our Barbies with these wonderful cardboard structures that were created. Barbie herself started to change a little bit. We still got the same facial sculpt, but as wigs were becoming more popular with American women, Barbie got wigs, and she came with sort of a molded, looked like very short hair, that kind of thing. And then 3 wigs came with her, and so you could change your Barbie's hair color at will. They also came up with different kind of plastic and sort of armature stuff so that the legs could bend, and that was a big deal. Barbie could sit down. Barbie could sort of move about the world more like the rest of us. Barbie became an astronaut as we were sort of moving into the Apollo period, and she really does start to be in the driver's seat in terms of having careers that aren't just sort of those 4 or 5 things that it would be acceptable for young women to aspire to. So that ends up being a nice thing for her and for us. 1965-66, Barbie's wardrobe was updated, and it really is quite fabulous. These outfits, they're the 1600 series outfits. They didn't make them for as long, so they're much more in demand, and they are made with Lurex and have fur details and all of that, and they really are quite fabulous. But Barbie was maybe lagging a little bit. Barbie was looking a little too ladies who lunch, so Mattel needed to reinvent and try to find something that was more like the way fashion was going at the time, which was mod, which was groovy, which was bright and fun and short and not sort of what mom was wearing, that kind of thing. So they thought, how can we get into this market without kind of abandoning Barbie or changing things too drastically? And so they invented a cousin for Barbie who was named Francie, who was British, who had a friend named Casey. This was the time that Twiggy was becoming popular, and so they decided that they would sort of set aside the mature kind of Marilyn Monroe voluptuous body, and Francie's body, she's a little shorter, she's more flat-chested, she's more sort of straight up and down for a nice little sort of mini dress, that kind of thing. And so you could actually see some examples there of things that Francie would wear that were just more youthful and more fun than the kind of things that Barbie was wearing at the time. So it's just a little toe into the water. It's also ended up being a toe into another sort of world where the year after Francie was established, a doll named Colored Francie was established. Who was still Barbie's cousin, if you remember the story from last year, but somehow a lovely African-American doll, the first doll that Mattel made that was African-American. And it was the beginning of the introduction of African-American and other ethnic dolls who've been part of the line to this day. The mod era, and once again, this is what collectors would call it, but it's all of this sort of bright, fun mini skirts and boots and lace tights and just a lot of kind of inspired design. Think of the TV show Laugh-In or any number of things from that period that were so sort of poppy and bright and interesting. Mattel thought girls who had a Barbie maybe would like to get a new Barbie, and so they created a trade-in thing. So you could take your older Barbie with the more traditional face and the more traditional hairstyles, pay $1.50, and you would get the new style Barbie. And a number of kids did take advantage of that and later regretted it because they gave away, what were precious to them and maybe even valuable dolls that ended up probably given to charity organizations or once again in a landfill. So what's good for business is not always good for people's hearts and collectors sort of down the road, kind of interested in this stuff. Along in this period, Christie was created as a character who regularly appeared in the Barbie line and was Barbie's African-American friend. And at I think it's the next year, there was a really notable addition to the TV offerings. Julia was created, which was a sitcom with Diane Carroll, who was an African-American nurse. And actually, I think she was a widow, not a single mother, but even having a single parent at all on TV was quite a step out at the time. And so a doll was created in the image of Julia, of course, the same size as Barbie, so they could wear each other's clothes. But it's just a little sort of nudge forward into the world with Mattel sort of acknowledging just how important it could be for young girls to see themselves represented in Barbie's world, in this case, African-American girls. Moving forward, we get into the 70s and the Malibu Barbie era, which is kind of not so exciting. They didn't spend as much money on things. You know, Barbie had given up her fashion shop for a camper and tents and stuff like that, and spent more time barefoot. What isn't necessarily, some collectors do really like this era, but typically people think of it as being something that doesn't have quite as much kind of edge or creativity to it. But it was fun. Barbie's skin tone changed because now it was more of a suntanned look. And they actually marketed a set of dolls where the dolls had tan lines. So you took the bathing suit off and you sort of had the echoes underneath. Barbie also, for the first time, has a straight ahead gaze. Because Barbie before that was always like this little sort of side-eye thing. That was a little more, well, you could say it was maybe seductive. You could also say it was a little more timid because she wasn't making direct eye contact. But now she's all about looking right at you, owning her identity. Along the line, the handlers, of course, had still been involved in the company and in Barbie's evolution through these many stages, but that started to lessen. The company was beginning to diversify and kind of move away from toys. Ruth Handler was struggling. She had breast cancer and had to have a mastectomy. And in 1978, she was indicted for mail fraud and false reporting to the SEC, and got fined and community service and got sort of pushed out of the company. So that was sort of the end of her kind of official role, if you will. Ruth Handler, sort of wonderful, scrappy, inventive person that she was, found her second act, which was to create prostheses for women who had experienced mastectomies, and she was very upfront about who she was. When I conceived Barbie, I believe it was important for a little girl's self-esteem to play with a doll that has breasts. Now I find it even more important to return that self-esteem to women who have lost theirs. So she really became a different kind of hero, if you will, and was someone who couldn't be stopped, if you will. There's something kind of indomitable about her. Mattel and Barbie collecting did kind of bring her back into the fold in the 90s, and she was, sort of officially considered the creator of Barbie and really a beloved figure, although she really wasn't involved in the company, aside from being a spokesperson, that kind of thing. But anyway, Barbie's moving on. We're entering the disco era. We've got Saturday Night Fever going. And Barbie is there for it with all kinds of shiny clothes and cars and friends and disco settings and all of that great stuff. 1980, we finally get to a point where Barbie doesn't have a friend who's black. Barbie is black. Barbie herself is black. And that's a big step. There's a Hispanic Barbie. Barbie starts to sort of own ethnicity, if you will, and really kind of represent in the culture. Mattel started a line in this year called the Dolls of the World line that focused on different ethnic costumes from many, many countries, many of them European, but also Asian countries, Indian countries, African countries. So it started to sort of change the idea of who Barbie could be and sort of make it a little bit more universal. 1980s, Barbie, like the rest of us, made a few fashion faux pas along the way with some regrettable looks and some very, very striking, very memorable eye makeup, among other things. The 1980s, this time period is also the time when pink really became Barbie's signature color. Looking back in the 60s and 70s, Barbie packaging was in lots of different colors, but the logo was there. But in the 1980s, everything was pink. And you'd go to Toys R Us and you'd walk down the aisle and everything would be pink, even the floor in this case. And that's really stuck with Barbie, that pink color. It's actually an actual Pantone color of Barbie pink. And when they were making the Barbie movie, all of the scenes in Barbie Land were all filmed in studios in England, and they actually ran out of that color pink. They were sort of scouring the countryside, trying to find more of it because they had used so much. So Barbie found her signature color then. 1980 is also the time when Barbie collectors sort of started to find each other. In the 70s, this is all sort of pre-internet, and it was harder to find your tribe, if you will, to find the other people who were so interested in that thing that you were so interested in. In the 70s, a woman named Ruth Kronk started a Barbie mailing list, and she would send out a mimeographed, sort of stapled together pamphlet of all of the things that she had available for sale, and people could respond to her, and she would sell them the things, and they'd mail her a check, and she'd send them the goods. So it's this very sort of grassrootsy kind of thing. 1980, 150 Barbie collectors somehow found each other, came together in New York City, and had their first convention. So that was a big deal. They skipped 1981, I think, but then reconvened in 1982, and the convention continues, except for a few virtual years during COVID. Every year, there's a whole bunch of Barbie collectors who come together somewhere in the U.S., usually someplace that's too warm and has cheap hotel rooms in the summer, and they sort of celebrate all things Barbie. Mattel, of course, was sort of vaguely aware of this, but not thinking, what does this have to do with us? These people combing the flea markets and, trading all this old stuff. But then they thought, well, those people have some money. Maybe we should be marketing to them. So in the mid-'80s, they started to create some dolls that were specifically for adult collectors. They started with some porcelain dolls to try to compete with other kinds of things, Franklin Mint or something like that. Usually very sort of fancy, bedazzled dolls, later designed by Bob Mackie. But the thing that kind of hit pay dirt for them was the first Happy Holiday doll in 1988. And they, of course, have had them ever since. Something that, a tradition could be created, and every year you would find a new one under the tree. So that was kind of the beginning of Mattel sort of officially reaching out to adults who were still interested in Barbie, having played with her as a child. This, of course, grew. And by the mid-'90s, there was a real Barbie boom. Mattel often did these sort of celebrity tie-ins. So they'd take a famous character like Scarlett O'Hara or like Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady or Maria in The Sound of Music and hook up with whoever the producer of the film was, whoever owned the rights, and create this sort of common product. And these things were very heavily produced in the mid-'90s and initially at least heavily purchased and even hard to find at times. But it really sort of ended up being like another 1990s trend that was not going to be the thing you'd use to finance your second home. People bought up the dolls and there's sort of an inflated sense of urgency for them, and now when we go to Barbie conventions, the Scarlett O'Hara dolls, which originally sold for $75 in the 90s, it's like $15, that kind of thing. So they really have not, Mattel hasn't like created collectibles, if you will, or sought after collectibles at least. Once in a while, they will create a doll that, for whatever reason, is released in more limited numbers. People get excited about it, and it becomes sort of a valuable collectible. But mostly speaking, hasn't been the case. Although the early dolls do have a lot of value, particularly if they're in good condition. Ways to determine that, we're a little, what's the word, risque here, showing Barbie's butt. But if you look, you can actually see important information about when the doll was produced. Mattel sort of stopped updating that information in about 1966. And so into the 90s and the early 2000s, it still said 1966 on Barbie's butt. So a lot of people think, oh, I have this valuable Barbie. But what you really have is something that is actually quite common. But one of the places to look for Barbie's value is in that little bit of printing that's on her rear end. The other place is in her feet. When Barbie, the first Barbies were created, they had little tubes put into their feet, and then there was a stand with two prongs in it, and you could set Barbie down on the stand and she would sort of stand there free. They ended up, I think they were made of copper, and they ended up kind of corroding. So if you find a Barbie who has those little tubes in her feet, you may have stumbled across something that could be valuable. The other thing that's notable, they actually went through different versions of the plastic that they used, and the very early Barbies are a real ghostly white because they've oxidized over the years, and the other sort of Barbie, what's the word, pratfall, the earrings were initially made of metal, and they would oxidize and interact badly with the face. So you'll find these vintage Barbies with these big green spots, which you can treat, but it's tricky. So those are some of the things that would tell people if you have something that really is quite old. Mattel has also made reproductions now of a lot of the original values, vintage dolls, but most people, like most collectors, can tell them apart. And the reproductions are super fun because you can play with them. You don't have to worry about them falling over or something like that, because you can have some fun because they're fairly readily available. All right, so I mentioned before about Barbie collectors having difficulty finding each other. Of course, all of that changed, as it did, I know, for many of us in 1995, 1996, when people first had access to the internet and Barbie groups started to form online, so you could see what people were doing with their projects in their basement, or see what they found in the store, or see what they had for sale. So that was a huge thing in terms of uniting Barbie, like it has been with so many other little wonderful worlds. Get a drink here. One thing that we've really enjoyed over the years sporadically has been going to Barbie conventions. They try to kind of spread them around the country. Sometimes there's a local organizing club, so that year it's in Milwaukee, or that year it's in Kansas City or something like that. Other times decisions get made just based on hotel availability and pricing, or it's not uncommon for it to be in Florida because there's other things people would like to see when they go to Florida, that kind of thing. And one aspect of the Barbie convention that I think is pretty unique is this thing called room shopping. And what it means, you indicate to the organizers of the convention that you're going to be bringing stuff along that you'd like to sell, and you sell it in your hotel room. And in the elevator wells, you post signs of what you have and where you are. And then people come to your hotel room and walk in and walk around till all hours. Sometimes, we've got, Marge is there and she's got, all the bridal Barbies that she's made laid out on one bed, and Hank is on the other bed watching the game. You really are sort of walking into other people's lives, and it's fascinating and a little bit strange. But you go in, they've got all kinds of dolls displayed, prices marked on things, lots of bartering that happens, and sometimes you can really get very good deals. These are all shoes and boots. All of this happens before the convention officially starts, because there is an official sales room as part of the convention itself, and they want the dealers to sort of have the priority there. But it really is kind of a fascinating thing that you really can't picture any other circumstance where you're going to walk into a stranger's hotel room at 12:30 in the morning.
And you stay with a friend, maybe have a bottle of wine,
Yeah, some cookies.
wine from room to room to room.
They actually will have displays in the bathtub. So it really is an all-out effort to move those Barbies along. They also have a fashion show where people of all sizes and shapes and ages will dress up in famous outfits of Barbies over the years, and they get introduced and they sort of walk the runway. You actually have somebody here in the room who was part of the fashion show once. He was dressed in the outfit called Victory Dance, which is one of the early vintage Ken outfits. And he's my favorite Ken. One of the really lovely aspects of doll collecting, and particularly gathering in person and being at these conventions, is meeting other male doll collectors, just because that's an unusual thing. It's a little subversive, for men to say, yes, I love these sequins and I love these frills. And especially, it's a corrective sort of action for some folks, because you might have been sort of criticized, or even, sort of, what's the word? Mocked, teased as a child for being more interested in something that was more traditionally associated with girls' play than for boys. But it really has been a lovely side benefit of going to the conventions, just to meet other men who like to do the same thing. Some of the things that people do, which I would call play, they're actually adapting Barbie dolls, sort of making them into a blank canvas, and then creating other dolls from them. It's called OOAK, is one of a kind. And so some folks will come to the convention with all of these one of a kind dolls that they have created from the sort of Barbies that you can purchase. We have a friend in San Jose, Matt Trujillo, who does these really hunky, wonderful kind of Ken dolls who look a little bit more hip than some of the things that Mattel produces. Part of that can be repainting Barbie's face. So they would take acetone or nail polish remover or something to remove all the paint that's there, and then repaint it all with magnifying glasses and very fine brushes. This was Katniss Everdeen doll from the Hunger Games that somebody repainted into just a more realistic likeness. Here's the Cher doll. You can see down at the bottom what the doll originally looked like, and then what she looked like post-artist paint job. Another aspect is actually changing the hair. So what they do, they actually will remove all the hair from a Barbie, and then go back through and make these little strands of some kind of plastic, probably, a hair product that you buy, and kind of weave them together and create a new hair style for Barbie. Could be a different color, could be a different style. Barbie's hair can actually be permed by putting it in boiling water. Yep, so if you were to roll Barbie's hair up on little pipe cleaners or something like that, and then take her upside down, dip her in the boiling water for 10 seconds, dip her in ice water to set it, and then let her dry and sort of unwind it all, and Barbie gets curls free of charge. Yeah, but there's all kinds of sort of creation and invention that happens with marketed dolls that people adapt. Some people make clothing for Barbie. I do a bit of that myself. I can tell you there's a lot of swearing involved because it's all so small. And even the order of things, like normally if I were making a shirt for a human being, I'd assemble it and then I would hem the sleeves afterwards. You have to hem Barbies before you go because those little tiny sleeves, there's no way you could get into that after the fact. But it really is amazing what people can do. And a lot of what they do really is emulating some of the early Barbie designs because it's often sort of classic couture. These are by a woman named Hilda Westerfelt who lives in Waterville, Maine, who her sort of handle is Bellissima Couture, and she makes these beautiful gowns. And she has a friend, Rebecca, who makes the furniture. So that is also an aspect of collecting. But these are really quite lovely things that she makes. Another thing which I find super exciting is creating environments for Barbie, making dioramas. These are not my dioramas, but these are just some examples of things people create just in some area of their house, might be sitting on a shelf. Just some kind of really realistic space for Barbie and Ken to live in. It really is kind of a blast. The other thing about it is finding all the miniatures is super fun. Around here, like there are not a lot of stores that sell Barbies necessarily, but places that sell miniatures, places that sell refrigerator magnets, small games, Christmas ornaments. Barbie's world is pretty easily populated with some things that weren't necessarily made for her. Sometimes things for teddy bears, any number of things can pop up in Barbie's world. Yeah, actually there are all kinds of competitions at the convention, but one of it is creating dioramas and then breaking them down and bringing them to wherever it is it's happening. I guess in your suitcase, I don't know. Mine are a little bit more kind of permanently installed in bookcases and in some other spaces in our house downstairs. If you want to see my dioramas, there's lots of views of those in this wonderful video that Ava Solberger made for Stuck in Vermont last summer. And we may get to look at that when we're done. We'll see how long this goes. Barbie and representation, sort of dipping back into that well of whether Barbie sort of reflects the culture that she's part of. And Mattel is really trying to make it so that all children can really see themselves represented in a Barbie. There was first a doll with a wheelchair in 1997, but it was a friend of Barbie's. She was called Share a Smile Becky, and she was the yearbook photographer, and she came with a little wheelchair. And that was a good thing to do. But now, in the last 10 years, 10, 12 years, it is more typical. Mattel is really making an effort to make Barbie reflect different kinds of people with different kinds of bodies. And it's not uncommon for any of the folks in Barbie's universe to have a wheelchair. A couple of dolls here. A doll with alopecia and a doll with vitiligo. And there have been several dolls who were made to represent folks with those conditions. This is a Barbie with a prosthetic leg, which is actually removable. I have a Ken here, but it's sort of, just trying to kind of represent for folks who might have a prosthetic leg, or to kind of, demystify it, make it okay for kids who will encounter folks who have prosthetic legs at some point in their lives. So they're just trying to sort of make Barbie more like who we are. A Barbie that was created in the past year that has Down syndrome and was endorsed by national organizations. And just plain old braces. I think she looks a little bit like Hannibal Lecter here. Slightly evil, but it's the thought that counts. Mattel has done a number of dolls based on actual people, and this is Laverne Cox, who is a transgender activist and actress, holding the doll they made in her image. Ibtihaj Muhammad, who was on the national U.S. fencing team and wore her hijab as part of that, was part of that series as well. These are all mass marketed. You know, you could get them online, certainly very, very readily. Most recently, they've done a line called Inspiring Women that has a number of women of color, in particular, Frida Kahlo here, Rosa Parks, Katherine Johnson, who's the mathematician who was shown in the Hidden Figures movie, Ella Fitzgerald, Ida B. Wells, Maya Angelou, Bessie Coleman, the aviator, Anna Mae Wong, and Celia Cruz are some of the people who are represented in that line, along with Amelia Earhart and Eleanor Roosevelt and a few notable women of white women. But it really has been a great series that they've done. Barbie, she got those bendable legs back in 1965. She has all kinds of bendable joints now, wrists and elbows and ankles. So all kinds of possibilities in terms of kids' play. But Barbie's body has, of course, been a topic of controversy over the years, just with some folks sort of holding on to the idea that Barbie is promoting an unrealistic ideal of beauty. And that's a tough one. That really is a tough one to wrestle with in a world where we have people getting surgeries in order to change their bodies, people having eating disorders, any number of things that are troubling. So Mattel, about 2015, started to address Barbie's body and introduce different shapes. And they're not, what's the world? It's not perfect, but it's something. We've got, starting all the way over on the other side, we've got petite Barbie. We have a tall Barbie. We have what was called curvy Barbie with the pink striped shirt, and then the classic Barbie at this end. The next year when they put them out, they took away the words curvy and tall and petite because those, we don't need to say that. It's just Barbie. That's just Barbie, and maybe she's a little taller than some. Maybe not. But they started to kind of open things up a little bit. It's interesting because around that same time, they stopped talking about Barbie's friends and everybody was just Barbie. And that kind of lingered into the movie with so many people calling each other Barbie. And then, we had Midge and we had Alan who were the outliners, but mostly like they're Barbie or they're Ken. They don't need all those names. Ken, of course, got new bodies as well. He got the slim body, which is on this side, classic in the middle, and then broad Ken over on the other side, sort of dad bod Ken. Jumping over to the Barbie movie. How many people have seen the Barbie movie? Oh, good. I love it. What were your thoughts on the Barbie movie? Just really curious. You liked it. Oh, that's great. That's great.
I really liked how they, like you said earlier, brought Ruth into the equation and let everyone know that she created it, she had an idea in her mind.
Yep.
It was intentional.
Yep.
I did not expect to cry through the latter half of the movie.
Yeah.
I know.
I love America Ferrera's monologue on
Oh, yes.
what it's like to be a woman.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. What else? Other things you noticed or wondered about? Yes.
Well, I have my own perfect day dress
Yeah.
that I got.
Oh, that's wonderful. Do you wear it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
one
great.
of my favorite parts of the movie.
Oh, that's great.
Was wearing that dress.
So, what?
The music, too.
Oh, yeah. It made a little bit of a splash, I would say. Kind of successful. It was a long time coming. Mattel made lots of animated movies about Barbie, which are mostly for children and often fairy tale based, that kind of thing, and sort of milked it through the VHS period and the DVD period, and now streaming. The first kind of talk of a live-action Barbie movie was actually in the 1980s, but it didn't get very far. And then in 2009, they started working toward what would end up being the Barbie movie that we all saw. Different people, sort of typical Hollywood thing where it was kind of passed from studio to studio. Different people were committed to it. Different people worked on it. Things didn't work out in several instances. Amy Schumer was associated with it and was going to play Barbie. And she and her sister were involved in rewriting the script. Certainly, I think they could make a great Barbie movie. Wouldn't necessarily be this one. Anne Hathaway was attached to it for a while. But Margot Robbie became involved as someone to play Barbie, but also someone to produce the movie. And she's the one who brought Greta Gerwig in and started to make the magic, if you will. And we've got all kinds of accolades as a result. 2023's biggest box office opening weekend, biggest opening that year for a film that's not a sequel or a remake or Marvel. Third biggest opening for any movie in July ever. Like up there, I think it's behind Star Wars and one of the Harry Potter films. Biggest opening weekend for a film directed by a woman. First movie to pass the $1 billion mark that's directed solely by a woman. And now it's at $1.44 billion worldwide. National Board of Review and American Film Institutes both put it on their top 10 list for 2023. 18 nominations at the Critics' Choice Movie Awards, winning 6. 11 Grammy nominations. You mentioned the music in it, won 2 of them. 9 Golden Globe nominations, which is a tie for the most ever nominated movie. And it's tied with Cabaret. It's like, woo, this is good stuff here. Earned 6 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, and won 1. And then used the word patriarchy more than any other movie ever. And that's my little reward. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of hope not in a way. Like, it would need to be really, really, really good, because often like sequels, are sort of a little kind of a pale shadow of what the sort of original thing was. So I don't know. I think it would need to have a really, really good script. It was interesting because it could have been a disaster, you know what I mean? It could have been really bad. And it was so heavily hyped and marketed, like all of that buildup. And like, it would have been terrible if the movie just really sucked. But it was so good, and I would just really want anything that sort of follows up to be like as good. And I don't know. It's possible. Yeah. So it was very exciting in July when it came out, because it was sort of like everyone, like, you say you're a Barbie collector and people are like, oh, that's interesting, but suddenly it was interesting to other people, and they sort of got what was kind of funny about it and campy and a little bit subversive. And I loved that. Stan and I, of course, went to the movie with Ava Solberger, and she captured the moment for 7 days. And for the wider audience, I brought along some dolls and set up a little diorama in the lobby, which other people actually used. So other people had dolls and cameras. There were drag queens in the audience, which was great, dressed like Barbie. And it really was a kind of a glorious moment. The media coverage, I think, was really kind of astounding. The whole Barbenheimer thing, which I think probably really helped Oppenheimer. Obviously, Oppenheimer was the real winner at the Academy Awards, but I think Barbie really got butts in seats for them. So they really benefited from that as well. And also just like cooperation between like major studios, kind of presenting an event rather than just trying to like annihilate the enemy, that kind of thing. I think, I think all of that is really wonderful and important. Post-movie, I've been wondering for, probably 10 or 15 years. I have a lot of friends in California and other sort of major Barbie areas, and they have Barbie clubs, and that just seemed like something that I would love to be a part of, and never really sort of found here or been able to get started. So we are finding a Vermont take on Barbie. And a club was officially launched on March 16th of this year, which is called the Champlain Valley of the Dolls. Yeah. So that'll be something. If anybody's interested, really happy to hear from you. We have a Facebook group, and we're hoping to have in-person meetings and just kind of hang out and show and tell and do crafts and talk about our favorite gal. I also have and Guy. I also have a small presence on Instagram. If I post Barbie pictures, that's typically where it is. So if you want to go there and give me a follow, I am play _house_with_Peter. And I actually put that the account is dolls and theater and whimsy, because there still is theater in my life, and that's a playhouse of sorts. And I just like to put things out there. I've found Instagram to be a really friendly community, and I've got lots of sources for all of these pictures. Yes.
Could you go back and we see a little part of your, do you call them dioramas?
Yes.
Yeah.
How about I think I'll show Ava's video, which will kind of give you the whole landscape, if you will. Save. Alrighty, I think I've got these set up. So we've got Daisy here, who is our beloved first dog, and Ginger, who is her younger sister, who's with us. Not here, but right now in our lives. So this is the video that Ava put together. It was happening at the time of the flooding, and she does allude to that, just because she just thought maybe we could all use a little diversion at a difficult time.
For the historic floods in Vermont. And so many Vermonters lost homes and businesses. It's been amazing to see the community come together and help one another get through this really difficult time. I thought about bumping this video because it's not flood related, but then I decided a little bit of levity might not be such a bad thing. So here it is, it's Barbie.
Barbie's moment to shine.
We are here in Shelburne at the home of Peter Harrigan and Stan Baker, and I am on the lower level in Barbie Central, and around me are hundreds of dolls. This is Barbie HQ. We're gonna find out about dolls like this one Peter has been collecting for 30 years.
I am a doll collector. I'm also a theater professor. I teach at St. Michael's College, and this is sort of a miniature version of what I do at work. All of these dolls that are posed in dioramas and wearing costumes and holding props and hopefully telling stories, if you will. Lifelong lover of Barbie dolls. As a child, I played with cousins' Barbie dolls and my sister's Barbie dolls and everybody's Barbie dolls, but waited till I was an adult to get some of my own. Just the glamour of it. A couple of these dolls are vintage Barbie dolls, and this is probably like 60 or 61.
And
Barbie,
when did they start?
59.
Okay, so she
Yeah.
was one of the very first.
Yep. Ken got invented in 1961.
I'm Stan Baker, I'm Peter's husband, and not a Barbie collector, but I did become a Ken collector.
In 1993, that was also when you two had first just started dating.
Yep. I was sort of lamenting Barbies and how much fun I had playing with them and all of that, and I happened to mention it to Stan in the month that contained my birthday. A Barbie appeared on October 17th, and that was the beginning of something grand.
I had no sense of Peter's collecting gene at that point, but it's been wonderful.
These have kind of evolved over a number of years.
I am going a little crazy in my head right now. Is this how people react to this? I'm just like,
It is, yeah.
maybe because it's connected to childhood, it's weirdly like a powerful memory.
I love the different pop culture tie-ins.
So show me some of your favorites.
Okay, oh boy, that's like Sophie's Choice here. All of them tend to evolve. You know, we've lived in our house for 27 years, and like some of these dioramas started then, and you know, I'll get a new piece of furniture, or I get a different doll, or I get a rug, or I get really cool contact paper, and all of a sudden, like, it evolves and changes. So
Always something new if I look for it, because Peter spends a lot of time creating, organizing, sewing, redressing. This doll was Pocahontas. When you put an outfit on a doll, it transforms the doll.
put the head in boiling water, and you can give Barbie a perm.
The other thing that Peter, I don't know if he talked to you about it, but Peter creates these shirts.
They're all the same scale. That's the thing with me. Like if it's 11 and a half, 12 inches, I'm in. The miniatures, I think, are super fun. Like you can't buy a Barbie everywhere. You can buy miniatures everywhere. You know, gift shops, refrigerator magnets, keychains, Christmas ornament. They came on a cork. This is a jewelry box. The lid opens up. Yeah, I think that was a Christmas ornament. So it's kind of keeping that eye out for what could work.
Well, there's a Ken-only space over
Yes, there is.
and you're in it.
I'm in it.
Yep, this is a Ken's only space. That Ken in the back is the Stan Ken. I actually painted it.
My Kens are all right here, and here, and here, and there. I would go to conventions with Peter, or Barbie sales, or just shopping with him, and he'd head for the pink aisle. Oh, I'm going to go check out the G.I. Joes. And then I realized the pink aisle is great, and I became enamored of Kens. There is, for men of Peter's age, I think a lot of gay men in particular, some shame associated with childhood and wanting to play with toys that were not traditionally masculine toys or male toys. So I think the therapeutic doll, I'm a psychotherapist, that I gave Peter was meant to sort of antidote that shame.
You throw like a doll collector. And I think playing with dolls, for me, openly, you know, is subversive in a way, because it's sort of, you know, it's something that I wasn't supposed to do.
When we moved in to this 3-level townhouse, Peter said, "You mind if the downstairs is a little over the top," meaning filled with Barbies. And I said, "That's great, as long as the middle floor is fairly conventional," because that was when we were plaintiffs in the civil union lawsuit that resulted in the Baker case. And I said, the press can barely handle same-sex marriage. I don't think they can handle vinyl. We were one of 3 couples who sued the state of Vermont for the right to marry and take on all those responsibilities and rights. And we were able over a 3-year period to prevail, and we ended up with civil union that was enacted by the legislature in spring of 2000.
And we had a wedding in 2010. You know, the fact that Stan understands and supports this aspect of my life and all the aspects of my life has allowed me to kind of become myself more.
You'll see just amazing diversity in terms of there are non-binary Barbies.
A Barbie that has Down syndrome, a doll with vitiligo and alopecia, a prosthetic limb. These flexible ankles, so Barbie could wear flats. Transgender doll, there's a Laverne Cox doll that they did. And then Tina. I'm particularly drawn to dolls that have short hair. Barbie really can be anybody.
This is amazing.
And they did a Frida Kahlo doll, Anna Mae Wong, and Ella Fitzgerald. Mad Men, My Fair Lady. RuPaul is not a Mattel doll. The Hairspray dolls, Joan Crawford, that's not a Barbie.
Just like a smorgasbord of delight.
Barbie shoes, I think, are my favorite. I love leopard. I love everything leopard.
Do you ever wonder if the dolls like hang out and talk when you're not around, and then when you come down, they're like, shh.
My brother, when he stays here, he always says, I can hardly sleep with all those little eyes staring at me.
Back in the box.
Mattel has never done the Supremes, but I've got kind of 2 different versions that I've done myself.
Oh, that's not Snape.
It is, yeah. And then the Spice Girls. Let me grab my feather duster. Just the backstage, basically. All the things that I might use in temporary scenes or Instagram shoots or something I might use in the future. Waiting in the wings.
Someday we'll be back in the house. And that was awful. Everything fell.
So I got a little display here that's sort of inspired by the Barbie movie. If you turn the steering wheel, the wheels turn.
So here we are at Palace 9 Cinemas, and we're here with Barbie and Ken and Peter and Stan, and we're gonna go see Barbie!
Hi, Barbie!
Hi,
Barbie!
She's got tickets!
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty excited. This is like Barbie Christmas.
VIPs only. Barbie, it was everything I imagined and more. Vermonters, I know many of you are struggling right now, but we will get through this because we are Vermont strong. Take care, everyone.
For your listeners, I would like to start an in-person Barbie club or even fashion doll club in Vermont. So if anybody's interested, hit me up. Because there is something very special about what we're doing right now. You know, hanging out, looking at the stuff, talking about it, handling it.
Oh, I know you're going to hear from people. I know.
Ava is just the best person to work with and such a wonderful spirit and so creative and generous. It really was so much fun to do that with her. One final little video clip. Despite the fact that the Barbie movie was not, didn't do all that well at the Oscars, and I think there was a real slight in the fact that Greta Gerwig was not nominated for Best Director. It's especially kind of glaring because she's made 3 movies as a director, and all of them were nominated for Best Picture, and she's never been nominated for Best Director. But anyway, I really felt like Barbie managed to sort of steal the night, if you will, with Ryan Gosling's performance of I'm Just Ken, his anthem, and this incredible sort of production number that was inspired by Marilyn Monroe, Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, and just got everybody involved and was, sort of as joyous as they come. Just sort of demonstrating what the movie was able to do in terms of honoring Barbie and making fun of Barbie at the same time, and being produced by Mattel, but mocking Mattel, kind of openly. Thought, how did she get away with that? But she did,
I know. That Ken, too, decided he didn't really want the patriarchy, he just wanted horses.
Yeah. I love, I brought some other things you can look at sort of as we wind down. I love this Ken, just because they've scratched out Barbie at the bottom and put Ken over it, and I just think what a wonderful kind of sense of humor these people have, and how great that they were able to create something that was so joyous and really just so ebullient and meaningful, for so many people. So it really, I'm happy to ride on their coattails and have a little moment of Barbie notoriety here with all of you.
When we go to Ken Bench, Barbie convention, sorry, there was a Ken Bench. Wow, it's one of the most diverse places I ever go. You go all genders, colors, blah blah blah, and economic levels would really made this their vacation for the year.
Yeah.
And it's just a week of joy. It's like I get to let go of everything else in my life, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I think everyone, I hope you all have something in your life that's purely for the sort of silliness and fun of it, because that's what it is for me. The other thing about Barbie convention, since many of the women there were born in the 1950s and 60s, one of the most popular names of that period was Debbie, for Debbie Reynolds. And so like if you yell Debbie at a Barbie convention, 35 people will turn around. It's just kind of the way it works. Yes?
So where is this year's Barbie convention?
What could be the hottest place to go? Not quite.
Palm Springs.
Palm
Springs.
It will be.
What a
Palm
Saturday.
Springs is what in August.
Yeah, and they're sort of tying it in with the mid-century modern stuff that's there. So that's really fun. Yeah, that's great. Carl?
I saw a Barbie that I think was Iris Apfel, who just recently died.
Yes.
I think I saw one.
Yep.
Are there any other representations of older Barbies, like
Not many.
senior citizen Barbies?
Not many. There have been a couple of grandma characters. There was this kind of Barbie adjacent doll line by Mattel called the Hart Family, I think in the 90s, and there was a grandmother and a grandfather. Then when Midge had her infamous pregnancy, there were grandparents there as well. And actually, and in that case, there was a black version of Midge and of her parents. No, typically no. He's a little older, but not noticeably. Yeah, there are not. The Eleanor Roosevelt doll. One of the reasons why I bought it was because she has gray hair. You know, there's a Susan B. Anthony doll who has gray hair. There's not a lot. Barbie's still pretty young. Yeah.
Rafaela, who just left,
Yes.
back to work.
Yeah.
She asked me to ask, she saw that you had boxes that said Christmas. So
Yeah.
is it something you do? Do you decorate some of your dioramas for the holiday season?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I did a lot of that during the pandemic just because we had so much time at home, you know what I mean? So like Barbie had a really great Christmas that year. Yeah, but I love, finding miniature trees and sleighs and gifts and sort of all of that.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the sales in the
Hotel rooms, because Rafaela collects mid-century Christmas decorations.
Oh, wow.
And there's a big convention called the Golden Glow.
Oh, wow.
And they do mid-century holiday decorations, and they
Yeah.
also do sales in the hotel rooms.
Oh, that's wonderful. Is that like shiny bright, like that kind of stuff? Yeah, oh my gosh.
The blow molds.
All that is very collectible.
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
It's
That's great.
fascinating that different little things that seem little that have huge conventions.
Yes, you're right.
They're-
Well, my husband's just like, oh no. Because here's this, 12-year-old. She's 15 now, but she's bringing home those large blow molds.
I love it. That's great. Renee?
Did you know Barbie's timeline and history and all the Mattel stuff before you got your first Barbie? Did you?
No.
That just opened the doors for you to learn it all.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's all sort of, I don't know, from like watching videos over the years or hearing people speak at conventions, like, most of this is like, stuff that I did not have to look up just because you kind of, I don't know, you kind of become acculturated, as you're part of a community for a long time.
Convention, there's always a Mattel night, there's the theme night, so you get a lot. But also Barbie Bazaar.
Oh yeah, there's a wonderful, there are lots of books written by collectors about Barbie, and there was a wonderful magazine from 1988 to 2005 or 6 that came out. It was every other month that had all kinds of kind of historical articles about Barbie and also articles about new products that were coming out, that kind of thing. And about customization. I think that's the coolest thing. There are people who, they buy their dolls and they keep them in boxes, and that's it. And that's great. But I really love to kind of bust them out and, see what they look like from the back and tweak their hair a little bit, maybe remove some bows and ruffles, make them a little bit less over the top, and have some fun with them.
I wonder if the attendance will be kind of
record-breaking this year?
It's interesting
Given the
because,
movie and the location.
yeah, the way it works, they always give the people who have gone the year before first access. Yeah, and it like sold out instantly. So we were actually on the waiting list for a while because we didn't go in 2023. Yeah, but we did get in eventually. But yeah, I think it will probably bring a lot of new folks to the hobby, which is great. Because well, like lots of things, the audience for like Elvis fans, ages, until they find something, some way, to market Elvis in such a way that other people start to discover him. The big kind of Barbie kind of area of creativity and growth has been on Instagram. And so there's all, and they're kind of, I would say, the rising group.
There's a public sale day at the convention, so sometimes people who are not part
Registered,
of it come
yep.
in and tour the exhibit.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's amazing. I call it like a small town you can only visit once a year. Really, amazingly rich and all kinds of relationships and history. Someone we know, Bob Young, who's one of the few people who has attended every convention, has actually written a book about Barbie collecting and the history of Barbie collecting, not like the Barbie part. And it's it's this 40 years of fun. Yeah. What else? Other Barbie questions you're burning to know the answers to? Yes.
I was just wondering what you think is next for Barbie, or what you'd like to see for Barbie.
I don't know. I always wish there was more clothing available, because they don't market much clothing. Shoes have become really scarce. I think one thing, when they changed the body type, the same shoes don't fit all those different dolls, and so their answer has been to just have fewer shoes. And that's too bad, because I kind of love the shoes. I don't know what's next. It's interesting. They're not. Mattel is very. I don't know. They're a little strange. Like there'll always be a Mattel presence at the conventions. And one year, like the guy, got up and made this big speech about Barbie being a brand. And like for all of the people sitting there, Barbie's not a brand. Barbie's like their muse or their buddy or their, inspiration, that kind of thing. And I don't know that Mattel always sort of understands collectors. And obviously, the collecting market is just one part of their income. They're really trying to get, parents to buy them for their kids. So. Yeah, but it's interesting to now, because if something new is coming out, you find out about it immediately because of the internet, which is great. Yeah, especially like in a place like Vermont where we don't have a lot of big boxes and all of that. You still find out what's happening.
I know I've read a lot about 3D printers, and people are doing interesting things with 3D printers. Yeah. Have you seen Barbie stuff done in 3D printers?
I've seen furniture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like really cool mid-century modern furniture. I've heard that it's not always as sturdy. So I think maybe like there's some people are better at the 3D printing than other people. I actually have a Barbie house that's missing some parts, and I wondered about like having replacements printed with a 3D printer because that's such an amazing option, which is relatively new. Yeah.
Wasn't there a movie made during the 80s that had a funky film that all the characters were Barbies? I can't even remember the name of it.
Yeah, Todd Haynes. He made a movie that was it was the Karen Carpenter story. It was called Superstar, and they actually were made with they weren't made by Mattel, the dolls. They were like kind of off-brand dolls, and so I think that helped him out in the long run in terms of keeping it available legally. It's interesting because Mattel's been really vociferous at different points in time about like copyright infringement. Sometimes, sort of to an extent where you just think, gosh, you just don't want to have any fun, do you? That kind of thing. Like the song Barbie Girl from Aqua, which came out in the 90s and, was, banned and they got sued and all of that. Now Mattel will play it at conventions, Like they sort of got that, they couldn't like keep it as this precious thing. They needed to kind of have some fun with it. At the same time though, you wouldn't see Barbie smoking, you wouldn't see Barbie marketed with bottle of Jack Daniels, that kind of thing. They do kind of keep certain things off limits in terms of her behavior, but there's other toy companies and individuals who will create those props for her. There's a wonderful company called Integrity Toys that mostly makes collector dolls, like like 250 maximum, that kind of thing. And the dolls drink and smoke and sort of have vices and sort of do all the things that the rest of us do. But Barbie's still got some things that are not part of her world.
It is wonderful to meet the people that design the Barbie dolls. There is, not surprisingly, a large number of gay men who are part of that group. But then also, they're I think increased. My sense, you tell me if I'm wrong, Peter, is that they've had increasing sway in terms of what gets produced.
I think so.
And what kinds of things, and it's become more edgy.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
Well, it couldn't have been more edgy than the 80s Barbie. Come on now. Thank you so much, Peter.
Oh, my pleasure.